Welcome to CAM Radio, an Ahead of the Curve initiative by Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, bringing you every Friday the latest in legal and policy. Stay tuned, enjoy listening.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to CAM Radio. Today we have Akila Agrawal, partner and the head of the mergers and acquisitions practice of Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. She's also here in her capacity as a writer of fiction today. She also describes herself as a reader and rereader. Akila has written a lovely book called Marriages Not Made in Heaven, the emphasis on the not. Akila, I devoured your book in one afternoon. It's delightful, it's deceptively deep without being didactic. I didn't mean for there to be alliteration, but that's genuinely what I thought. So excited to have this conversation about your book, about books and reading. Welcome, Akila.
Thank you. Thank you, Richa. Happy to be here and thank you for the kind words.
No, of course. Akila, your novel is very acutely observed. It's full of wry humor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your process of observation as well as your choice of recasting your observations in the novel with humor and a touch of lightness?
So, Richa, the process of observation, I would say, was not by design. So, being in Delhi, specifically in South Delhi, I meet a lot of interesting women across age groups from very different backgrounds. So, a lot of what I have written about is what I've seen in everyday life. So, given the topic, there was not much specific research involved as such. The humor element, that definitely was by design. I wanted to write something simple, at the same time serious, and I also wanted to make sure that it reaches more number of people and not typecasted as a heavy book or a serious book as such. So I tried to mix it up with humor, and I believe that in today's day and age, what we really lack is a sense of humor. I wish more people could laugh at themselves, not take themselves so seriously. And I also believe that there is a way to message or communicate serious matters in a simple fashion with a good sense of humor. So I've attempted that, and that was again by design.
I don't think you've attempted that. I think you've done that very, very effectively.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. Thank you for writing it in such an accessible way. I think a lot of people will enjoy reading it. And the choice of using humor, for instance, it reminded me of Emily Dickinson's line, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." So you tell some really profound truths about the human condition and social commentary, but you tell it slant by using humor and wit.
Right, right. I think satire is a great form of literature.
Absolutely agree. And certain subjects lend themselves well to being satirized. And I think the crazy cast of characters in Delhi particularly do. I want to talk about the characters a little more, but before that, why don't we talk about your literary influences a little bit? I could definitely see the influence of writers like George Eliot and Jane Austen. Although your book is different from a traditional Austen book, it gets quite dark in some parts. Also, Indian authors like Manju Kapoor, maybe. Why don't you tell us about who your literary influences for this book were?
I think you're right, Richa. It's a combination of Austen and Eliot, because I think Austen doesn't have that many dark parts, but Eliot does bring about social commentary along with his darker aspects. Uh, so I have been inspired a lot by the classics. So I like most of the social commentary by Hardy or the Bronte sisters, all of Austen, Eliot, and even Steinbeck for that matter. I've also been inspired by the contemporary authors like Chitra Banerjee or Elizabeth Strout, Anne Pratchett. Give me a complex drama, give me loads of emotions, a dysfunctional family, and I love reading that kind of stuff. And I also think that most works of fiction reflect society better than what books of fact do. And I think what I've tried to do is hold a mirror to what I see around me, even at this age. And the point I'm trying to make is what Austen may have written so many decades ago is still relevant in this day and age in urban India.
That's so beautifully put, especially what you said about fiction, excavating and revealing something about human nature and about society more than reading the newspaper or reading nonfiction. So I'm really glad you've done that. And you've touched upon some really deep themes. And I'm going to get into each of them, dig deeper into each of them in a bit. But before that, tell us a little bit about the development of the characters, because a book of fiction really kind of turns on the characters and whether you're able to root for them or even be upset by them or exasperated by them. And you have some really, really interesting, deep characters in the book. Each have very distinctive personalities and are archetypes in some ways. Why don't you tell us about how you built and developed each of the characters in the book?
So the original thought process was based on Pride and Prejudice. So a very ambitious mother trying to get her daughters married to the most suitable men. And I kind of typecasted the three sisters. There is a smart one, there is a nice one, and then there is this pretty one. But if you see after the first few chapters, they kind of got a life of their own. Sounds very cliched, but it is really true. uh, I started making them more gray. So they all started with very black and white kind of characters. And as they kind of evolved and progressed, it's very difficult to pinpoint on which side, you can associate them in very many ways. So the character development happened with time, and they started off very different, I should confess. And I also tried to make them all unique in the sense that though they were conditioned by their upbringing, I tried to make them more independent and fierce.
Yeah, that was really lovely, I have to say, because I think you stayed away from the instinct of making female characters likable. As you said, they all have shades of gray. Um,
Yeah,
some of them,
yeah,
do some really, strange things, but you still, you're still invested in the characters. And I think that's a real triumph. As I was rereading the book, I
thank you.
remember one of the characters says she wants to quickly accumulate good karma because she wants something nice to happen for her. So she's like, how do I quickly accumulate good karma? This is such a tedious process. So, just that one line tells you so much about the character, and there are so many
Right,
human, real human beings who are like that.
right, right.
That was really lovely. So, I mean, this is reinforcing my recommendation that everyone must read the book.
Thank you. No, a lot of people resonated with the book. In fact, some people said it brought them to tears. A lot of parents read the book and kind of resonated with it as well. So, yes.
Yeah, that's really lovely because I think the parents' characters are also sort of really interesting because you feel some empathy for them and you feel some
Right.
contempt for them, and you've managed to have so many conflicting emotions for the characters in the
Right.
book, which I really appreciated. And you've also tackled some, although it's funny and witty, and we spoke about some of the funny lines, it also takes on some very serious themes. So,
Right.
marriage is an eternal plot in literature. We've talked about Austen and Eliot. But your novel does a really exceptional job of taking a scalpel to the institution of marriage and surgically taking it apart and observing it very closely. And the gender dynamics, particularly, the women in the novel look to marriage as a vehicle for independence and transformation or redemption. But for some of them, it takes very dark turns. And for some of them, it unexpectedly gives them some joy. So tell us about why you chose marriage as a theme and chose to explore its dark side as well as its joys, and how you explored the three marriages for these themes.
So the topic was chosen more out of convenience because of time constraints and stuff like that. I chose a topic which did not require much research, which I could write without much effort, I would say, because the book, frankly, just flowed out of me. So the topic again, I always found fascinating. Most family dramas, whether you like it or not, involve around marriage and children and siblings and stuff like that. So all of those components are there in this book as well. And I also note, see, when you're young, you have this, at least I had this black and white concept of marriage, right? So we've seen marriage of our parents, which I think today, looking back, is very different from the kind of marriages I see around me in this day and age. So the thought was to kind of share my thoughts on the reasons for marriage. It need not always be love. Different people get married for different reasons, and all of that is okay. And the what I would say, the covenants around marriage itself need not be what it used to be, and I think that also works. So these are the points I wanted to try to put across as what I have seen of the modern day marriages around me.
Yeah, and that was fantastically done. I think people get married for all sorts of complicated motivations and, explored that without any judgment. So I really appreciated that. But also, you've dealt with the issue of gender in a really, really interesting way. For instance, one thing that really struck me is the mother in the book, Mrs. Neeta Chopra. She's the mother of three daughters. She's constantly hiding the fact that she works. And she says working outside the home is, the biggest failure for a woman. And I thought this was symptomatic of a deeper issue. So, female labor force participation in India, for instance, is abysmally low. And even as women are getting more educated, they're choosing not to work outside the home. And it's because of these issues of deep socialization and internalized gender roles that causes this. And you've chosen a fictional representation to put forth some of these issues.
Right. I think what I tried to bring out is what I've seen in Delhi. There is this clear distinction between the business class and the professional class. So even in schools, you have some schools which are where most of the business class kids go, and some schools where the professional kids go, or the bureaucrat kids go. So it's part of Delhi society that I have noticed. So what I tried to bring out is that I have seen very many smart, well-educated women who would never work for anybody, and they see it as a failing to be an employee, though they may be qualified to be, a professional. So I wanted to bring that out as how a lot of women around me perceive it is better to be your own boss. Maybe I don't know, be a designer or be an entrepreneur rather than, go to office and do a 9 to 5 job. And I also see a lot of, as in, of course, I'm generalizing here and people may have different views about this. I also see a lot of women prioritize their careers based on how much time they can spend with family, though the rest of the family may not have those priorities. So it is like they would take up a job so long as they're not seeking a balance between career and family, but they want to make sure that anything they do with their family is never compromised because of their work, which I find very fascinating in their choice. Of course, it is a personal choice that each of them make, but that is something that I have noticed around me.
Absolutely. These are deep economic and sociological, anthropological issues that you have reflected so beautifully with your fiction. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And also the point that you made about the distinction between the business class and the professional class is really interesting in the way that you describe the relationship between the Chopras and the Mittals,
Yeah.
the Chopras who work for the Mittals. And there's this lovely line about how when the Mittals ignore them, they felt slighted, and when they were nice to them, they felt patronized.
Yeah.
And they look at their clout on the basis of the number of Mittals who attend their wedding.
Yes, yes. Those are, nuggets.
Which are again sort of very, very revealing, I thought. Maybe, just to go back to the gender piece for a moment again, I think another thing I really appreciated is that each of the women have a bodily autonomy and freedom, and they, for at least two of the sisters, they express it in widely divergent ways. So I don't know if you set out to do that, but I think it's a message that you've conveyed very effectively.
Yes, yes. Again, that's what I see. I see that there is a lot of liberation in terms of, women's expression. amongst all classes of people around me. So, whether it is my maid or my colleague or anyone I meet across Delhi, I find that there is a general sense of liberation, which over time has been very heartening.
Absolutely. And I think, countries like the US, for instance, are still struggling with some of these issues because of judgments like Dobbs recently.
Right.
But you describe in your book how these two women choose what they want to do with their bodies, and are able to, which was really lovely. Stepping back again from some of the more serious themes, I think your book was or set rather in the year 2000 or so, 2000 to 2005 or so. Where do you think your characters are now, and what do you think they're doing?
I don't know. As in, the way I wanted to end it was to leave it to the imagination of the reader. There is no sequel coming. Several people have asked me this and continue to ask me this. I think, in my mind, this book has been put to rest, and it is for each reader to decide where each of the girls are right now. And I'm sure they're all in very happy places given who they are. In my mind, they're all in good places.
Absolutely. I really appreciated that you didn't have a very clear resolution for any of the stories, because, in my view, the role of literature is revelation and not necessarily resolution.
Right.
I worry about Nisha,
You do?
because
Why? Why do you worry about Nisha? She's the smartest.
she's very street smart, but I think she has a way of ignoring evidence which is inconvenient to her. So that could backfire for her. So that's the one thing I worry about for her.
Okay, I believe Nisha can take care of herself very well.
Oh, good. Good. Very well said. So why don't we talk a little bit about books more generally? Because I think being a reader is a very central part of your identity, but so also is being a lawyer. Why don't you tell us about how being a reader and a writer impacts your practice of law, and the other way around? Does your practice of law impact your writing or how you read in any way?
Definitely, I think the two are connected, and I think reading helps. Of course, we lawyers have to read. If we don't read, I don't think we are good lawyers. But reading fiction also helps. I think fiction gives us perspective, which is what we need in this day and age. The kind of complex problems that we face, the practical problems that we face, and the kind of people that we deal with, both whether it's your client or your peers or your associates or the opposing counsel. I think fiction gives you that empathy. You cannot live every kind of life, but you can experience those journeys in books. So you can definitely understand counterpoints, different perspectives, and therefore be more constructive in your dealings with people in your work life and even in your personal life when you read fiction. um, how me being a reader or writer helps me being a lawyer, I think that this is how it does. On the other way around, being a lawyer definitely helps, to write better, because we love language, right? We are all
Yeah.
big fans of the written word. And we also have that discipline. We are technical, we are analytical, we are disciplined in terms of time and effort. So being a lawyer helps me, write better to that extent. And also it makes me meet very many different people. Like, suppose I was not a lawyer, I don't think I would meet half the people I meet today. So it gives me a wider base and content to write about.
Yeah, I think now when people meet you, they're going to be worried if they're going to be a character in your
No,
novel.
there is no one character. It's a little tiny
Yeah,
pieces of very many people I've met.
no, no, absolutely. There's, they're composite characters, I'm sure. And in fact, there's a small slice which I really enjoyed of, office dynamics in your book, which I think may have come partly from your experience as a lawyer and the
Yeah.
work that you do.
Yeah.
But I think more than that, as you said, the economy and the precision with which you write is certainly something I think that comes from your
Yes.
years.
The
Right.
brevity. I think the brevity is something that we lawyers do, right? We can't anymore write 4 lines when we can write 1 line. I think the book is brief thanks to me being a lawyer.
True. And I think more than brief, I think just, as we were discussing earlier, revealing characters in a single line or just a few words, I think.
Succinct as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and I think also fiction maybe just makes us better human beings, right? I think it
Absolutely.
develops a sense of empathy. And as you said, you understand other people's lived experiences, allows you to kind of travel to places you would never have traveled to, which is lovely. So that's why lawyers should read fiction.
Yes, absolutely. I would recommend all lawyers read fiction. Read as
Right.
much as you can, both for the language and for the insight.
Really sage advice there. Okay, now I'm going to do a really quick rapid fire with you around books and reading. So, Akila, tell us, what are you currently reading, or what did you last read that you want to recommend to us?
I just finished reading The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. I don't know whether I would recommend that to everybody because it's a very long book. Very nice book, of course, but it does take, I took nearly 2.5, 3 weeks to finish it. So that's what I last read. The book I read before called Mad Honey is something I would recommend to people who are interested in light fiction with serious topics. So
Hmm.
it is about a girl discovering her sexual orientations,
Oh, wow.
and that was a good book and well written. Jodi Picoult.
Okay, both great recommendations. Covenant of Water, 700 pages. So I was a bit
Yes.
about wading in. So this cautious recommendation from you was useful.
Definitely buy a Kindle edition. Carrying the hard copy was very tiring.
What are your three favorite books that you would recommend to everyone?
So I don't know about everyone. People who like to read the three favorite books I would recommend. I would recommend all the classics. So I think that's a great place to start for anybody. Like I would recommend, as I said, the Austen, Hardy, Tolstoy,
Mm.
name it, and you can never go wrong with the classics. There is so much in it that you can always enjoy it at your own pace. In contemporary authors, if I have to recommend a couple of books, I've always liked Remains of the Day. I've reread it several times. It's one of my favorite books.
The
And
perfect novel, according to me.
yes, it's a very perfect, nuanced novel. And in those lines, I've also liked Atonement. Again, sort of contemporary book. Yeah, so I would recommend these if you're looking for good fiction.
Lovely recommendations, especially the classics, which I feel each rereading
Yeah,
brings out something new.
absolutely.
Great. So, you've created some really memorable characters. Which are your favorite two or three, or the most impactful female characters from everything you've read?
I love Olive Kitteridge.
Hmm.
I like Elizabeth Bennet, of course, big fan. The third female character, I like Portia.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. Olive Kittredge is very spunky and
Yeah,
spirited in
she's
nature
yeah,
of your characters.
she's a
And Portia
badass.
as a lawyer, I think, fantastic answer. Anything you could change about your book that you would like to?
Oh, lot of things. Lot of things. I wish I could get it edited better,
Right.
um, and stuff like that. So it's a debut book, so a lot of things I would like to change if I had to.
But still a really lovely book. The only thing I'd change is I wish it was kind of distributed better.
Right, that also.
So think of your most challenging client, Akila. If there was a book that you think she or he should read, which should it be and why?
Luckily, I don't have that many challenging clients. They're all nice clients right now.
Great
But if I
answer.
had to, if I there are some who are, who are stressed out clients, I would recommend Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I
Hmm.
would tell them to go with the flow, and that is something which is a very brief, nice book that kind of gives you a lot of perspective and things to think about.
Absolutely, modern classic. Which book would you recommend to young lawyers?
Young lawyers, apart from the fiction, I would recommend this book, which kind of helped me a lot. It is by Mark Mariah. It's called Rainmaking Made Simple. And I would like to think that that read made a lot of difference in my life when I read it some 15 years ago. Somebody gave it to me, and it really helps a young lawyer to start thinking and doing business development.
That's really good advice. I think I'm going to order and read that.
Yeah, let me know what you think about it.
Absolutely. Any favorite books involving law and lawyers? Apart from Merchant of Venice, you mentioned Portia.
I think my favorite lawyer is Thomas Cromwell. I think he's the most original lawyer, the big bully plus charmer, servicing the most toughest client, King
Henry
Henry
VIII.
VIII. So I would recommend all of Hilary Mantel's book. You know, you can start with Wolf Hall maybe, and how Cromwell uses law as a weapon and he's the most solution-oriented lawyer, I would say.
Right, right. That's a fantastic recommendation. And actually, you mentioned Mantel, so I'll sort of remembered one of her quotes about reading fiction. She says, "Show me a person who doesn't see the point of fiction, and I'll show you a pompous, inflexible, self-absorbed bore."
Very true. When I go to a house without books, I think twice.
On that lovely note, thank you so much, Akila. I know there are many, many demands on your time because you're handling
No,
some of
thank
the most
you. Thank you,
complex and
Richa, for
tractable
taking the
matters.
time. Thank you.
Really enjoyed this conversation. It was really
Likewise.
a lot of fun, but also really serious and deep. And everyone who hasn't read Marriage is Not Made in Heaven, please order your copy and read it.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Akila.